Bring Power Home is a grassroots movement in Pueblo, Colorado. And in this presentation, we're going to show why Pueblo should leave Black Hills Energy. If you have more questions about the Bring Power Home organization, please visit our website, bringpowerhome2020.org. In this presentation, we're going to talk about the problem, talk about the solution, the benefits, look at things from a frequently asked type question that citizens of Pueblo would ask, and then tell you what our ask is. The big problem is that customers of Black Hill Electric in Pueblo pay an outrageous amount for their electricity. The chart on the right shows various utilities in the state of Colorado, with Black Hills being one of the top. The only utilities that pay higher rates are these residential rural electric utilities with low population densities that naturally have high rates because they service a large territory with a low number of customers. If you look at residential bills from customers who use about 650 kilowatts per month and compare Pueblo Black Hills with San Isabel, Colorado Springs Municipal Utility, Denver Excel, which is an IOU or independently owned utility, we see that Puebloans pay about 43% more than Denver, 42% more than Colorado Springs, about the same, although San Isabel is still about 3% lower in cost than Black Hills. If you now go and look at the National Electric Rate Study, which is a large study across the United States done by Lincoln Electric Systems, looking at the same residents, they show a 37% more cost of a Pueblo resident compared to Colorado Springs and a 45% compared to that of Denver. If you look at commercial business, and in this example we've got some restaurants in a gourmet burger shop in Pueblo that have stores in Springs and Pueblo, and then a Denver area ice cream store, and compare their rates, Pueblo costs are 40% higher than the Springs and 53% higher than in Denver. Looking at the National Electric Rate Study for businesses, and this is for a customer that uses 15,000 kilowatt hours in a month, they state that Pueblo pays about 134% more than Colorado Springs and 49% more than Denver. Another problem is that an enormous amount of money leaves Pueblo. Pueblo residents and businesses pay Black Hill about $119 million in 2018. $20 million of that went right to the shareholders and executives of Black Hills, never to return to Pueblo. Another big problem, since Black Hills is an independently owned utility, they're really governed by the Public Utility Commission in Denver. So we as Pueblo citizens really have no voice in that decision. All the decisions are made by the Public Utility Commissions and Black Hills. The treatment of Black Hills customers in Pueblo has been abysmal. We've seen gigantic rate increases. When you call for an issue, you're talking to somebody in South Dakota who probably knows very little about Pueblo. And Black Hills has treated people that had struggled to make their bills very poorly. They've done a little bit in 2018 to improve that, but the main problem really hasn't changed. And this shows that problem, that the number of disconnects in Pueblo remains really high. Several thousands of people every quarter are being disconnected. The orange line in this graph shows the disconnects The yellowish color shows the people that get reconnected in that quarter, and the green shows the people that remain disconnected. So what's happening? These people get disconnected. They no longer have electric power. They have to figure out how to pay for that. They are actually penalized because they have to pay ahead. They pay a fine, and it's hard for them to reconnect. So they go to social service organizations for help, and these social service organizations are stressed because since Black Hill has taken over, the amount and cost to them has increased dramatically. And one thing I wanted to point out in this chart is that the fourth quarter data is true. We've verified it. This is what the data actually comes from Black Hills to the recording organization, and then the recording organization transmit that as a filed document. So this fourth quarter, that's the actual data. Investor-owned utilities put profit before people. They're allowed to earn a high rate of return, very low risk investment to them. So they look for these infrastructure improvements. And the picture to the right is the Pueblo area generation station, where they've made such improvements that really don't benefit the customers much. They really benefit Black Hills because they can get this 9.83% return on their investment. As they make these investments, we pay for them as customers, so our rates go up. And this idea of constant infrastructure improvements not needed by the customers is not an affordable model for a Pueblo. Another problem is that we're tied in with Black Hills' expensive costs when we could be going to lower cost generation that's available on the wholesale market. We can just go, if we could go buy it from the wholesale market, we could save a lot of money as opposed to being trapped in the vertical integration of Black Hill and having to use their electric generation. Another problem is that investor-owned utilities really are controlled by the PUC. We don't have a voice. And just by the nature of the way the PUC is formed from industry experts, things tend to happen that aren't necessarily to the benefit of the customers. Now, with that said, we're fortunate to have Francis Concilia, a Puebloan, who understands Pueblo and has stopped a lot of Black Hills' aggressive increases that otherwise, without Francis, would have happened. But we don't have any guarantee that Francis is going to be on that board when the next rate increase is there. So our solution is we want to say goodbye to Black Hills, take the off-ramp, and create a public power, citizen-owned electric utility. Without Black Hills, we can create this public power. It means that we would own it. It would not be for profit. It would be focused on customers. And there wouldn't be the shareholders. We would be the shareholders, owners of that utility. So the public power option has been documented to cost about 15% less than compared with the investor-owned utilities. Public power is more reliable, where it has about half the number of power outages as independent-owned utilities. And there's a lot of examples of public power. 29. How will we organize in Pueblo? Well, the Puebloans are concerned that the city can't run things well, so we'd want to organize this as kind of an independent enterprise, not controlled by the City Council of Pueblo. Being as a department of the city is probably not the choice we want to make. We want to make it like the water board. And another option is we could use the rural electric co-op model and make an urban co-op. Maybe we would partner in that. And an example of a partnership might look like something like this. There are financial companies more than willing to give the electric utility a loan to buy all the infrastructure. These are seen as low-risk investments. Typically, companies that would be doing that loaning are companies that run pension plans, retirement plans that are very conservative. We would just pay for that in our normal bills. So one example is a partnership, a three-way partnership, where we use Pueblo Water to do the billing and customer service. We just add more employees to manage the electric utility. We could use San Isabel to do the maintenance and operations. They have a lot of expertise, and they would probably just hire a lot of the employees in the current Black Hills Electric Association that are currently doing this work and have the knowledge. We would then be able to buy our energy on the open market, and there are a lot of companies that would help us with that. So, and the option in the end is that we would save a lot of money. The main benefit is that we would get our rates competitive with other cities. And this would happen because we're buying wholesale power, and that saves us a bunch of money. As a matter of fact, a potential partner is already willing to guarantee a 10% lower rates. So it's not a large mental exercise to see that 10% savings is on the low side of the savings. Going as a public power, we don't have this independent owned utility that's always wanting to raise rates and coming in with some outrageous rate increases like that has happened with Black Hills in 2014 and 2018 rate increases. As I kind of stated earlier, public power is more reliable and fewer outages. One of the important things are the linesmen and engineers that currently service our utility through Black Hills. They would probably just transfer over to this new utility because they're important in the reliability of that system. And public power, at the statistics, if you look across the country, public power is much more reliable. Their number of outages is much lower than independently owned utilities. A major benefit is keeping all this money that would normally go to the Black Hills shareholders. We would keep it in Pueblo, and that amount is around $20 million per year. So we don't pay for these nice corporate headquarters. We don't pay for their extravagant salaries. Not to say that a CEO doesn't make that money, shouldn't make that much money, but for running the Pueblo electric utility, that's way out of control. We don't have to return all these profits back to the shareholders, so that $20 million bounces around in the Pueblo economy. That could be a tremendous benefit for Pueblo. Owning our electric utility means that we control it. Issues are resolved in Pueblo, not by some public utility commission in Denver. We could design the utility to be state-of-the-art, so the rates are commensurate with what Pueblo needs, not what the shareholders in a independently owned utility company want. We could focus on customers, something that really has not happened with Black Hills. And now we have the option to go to the lowest cost generation. We're in a period of time where electric generation costs are decreasing as wind and solar power technologies evolve, and in the future they're going to be the low cost generators. We could take advantage of that. So a study was already done called the Phase 1 study, and this was a very conservative study. As a matter of fact, when the consultants, these EES consultants who are experts in taking utilities to a public option, when they did this study, they showed even a bigger savings than what's up here on this chart. So again, this savings includes buying all the infrastructure. The red line shows that we could reduce our rates, still pay for all the infrastructure, which would be just part of the bill, and then after we pay that off, we would then be able to even do a further rate reduction. Whereas if we stayed with Black Hills, they're just going to continually increase our rates. Looking at this graph a little bit more, we would pay off the buying all the electric distribution and generation, not generation. We would pay off the distribution and transmission. We don't want the generation in our bills. There would be no taxes. It would basically be financed through a loan to the electric utility and just paid off in our normal bills. And after that bill is paid off, we would own it and we could go to further rate reductions. And one of the questions is, oh, we can't do this. This is going to be too dramatic, too hard to do. Well, Pueblo's done this 5 times in the last 50 years, like once a decade. And in most cases, what would happen to the employees is that they would just transfer over to the new utility. So how much would this cost to break away? That's really the wrong question. I think the bigger question is, if we don't do this, how much is it going to cost us? If we don't break away, we're still going to give our businesses really high electric rates. So we get fewer new businesses. The disconnect issue is going to stay a problem. It really hasn't, the number hasn't changed. They've just been a little kinder with the reconnecting policies. If we don't break away, we don't have a seat at the table. The PUC makes all the decisions with the PUC and Black Hills being at the table. This $20 million a year of lost opportunity is gigantic. Think about what $20 million would bring to Pueblo if we could have that in our Pueblo economy. A lot of the current issues we have with roads and infrastructure would go away. And owning the utility, we'd have a voice in the rate increases. And with these new technologies coming online, rates should really decrease. We'll never see that if we stay with our independently owned utility. So what would happen to Black Hills operations? Well, they would shift over to this new utility. Key are the linesmen and engineers that run the utility. They really know the system. We would need to retain those people. They're important and they're trained. They go through a very extensive training because it's a dangerous job. Now we hear from Black Hills about all the good they're doing, while their corporate members are in PUC asking all the same things that they have in the past. So they have kind of this dual behavior. The Pueblo chieftain is signed on to the Black Hills likely because of all the money they get from their ads. And the funny thing is, we as customers are paying for these ads. So our ask to you is, let's vote to break away. We're not sure when the vote will be. We're hoping that it can be at the same time as the normal election cycle in November of 2019. So talk to your neighbors about this. Contact your city council member. Ask them to support this breakaway. And just keep in mind, by state law, Black Hills must keep power on while we make this transition. They're required legally to support the power as we make the transition to the new public power. How can you help this grassroots campaign? Well, we want you to vote to leave Black Hills. If you want to volunteer, please contact somebody at the Bring Power Home organization. You can donate to our campaign fund. Follow us on social media. Put a sign in your yard. and we're gonna be able to accept checks very soon if you want to donate. So support this Bring Power Home initiative. Find out more by going to our website. Thank you very much. The state of Colorado, over 2,000 in the nation. So it's not a new thing. It's been around a long, long time.